righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to No One Asked Us, episode 42 with my co-founder this week, Tim Nguyen. Now, really, I probably should have written Tim's bio, but as usual, we just had Claude go ahead and write it. So we'll see how it does here. Tim Nguyen is co-founder of AskBobAI and Be Smarty, a fintech platform powering digital mortgage transformation for lenders nationwide. A self-taught coder turned serial entrepreneur, Tim previously built In-House Inc. from startup to 150 plus employees before exiting in 2014. He's a leading voice on AI adoption and mortgage, championing practical domain-specific AI that streamlines borrower experience without replacing the human touch. Tim is contributing author to Entrepreneur Magazine and MBA Newslink and a frequent guest on industry podcasts, including FinTech Hunting and the Crispin Commentary. Based in Orange County, California, he holds a BS in Information and Computer Science from UC Irvine. Welcome, Tim.
Hey.
Good to see you.
I can't believe Claude wrote on that. That was pretty good.
He is also a burgeoning top level elite little league baseball coach. He is currently manufacturing the turnaround of the century with his son's baseball team. So it's impressive. So thanks for coming on the show, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
This is just another way for me to get an hour with my co-founder. Really, ultimately, at the end of the day. Just kidding. So, Tim, we always joke on here. Nobody grows up as a little boy saying, I really want to be in mortgage tech. So how did you kind of land here, right? I mean, obviously you went to college for computer science, but how did you land into the mortgage world and what did that sort of look like?
It's kind of an interesting story. I'm sure it's very similar to most people who accidentally fell into it. So I went to UCI for computer science. I was in my junior year, not liking it at all. Just too much structure. I want to get out there, make some money and do stuff, right? Build stuff. Anyhow, I was hanging out with an older friend of mine at his apartment, or actually at his rental. And, we're sitting there on I think it was like a Wednesday afternoon, just doing what college kids do, just, hanging out and doing our thing. And he's like, hey, I got to go do an appraisal. And I said to myself, and he's like, do you want to come? Do you want to go or stay here? I'm like, I'll roll with you. So we get in the car. He goes out to his appointment. He's like, stay here in the car. I'll be back in like 15 minutes. So I'm just sitting there. There's no cell phones back then, right? So I just don't know what I was doing, just probably listening to music. He comes back later with a $250 check. I'm like, bro, how'd you do that? Like 15 minutes of work? Like, what'd you do? So, I just took pictures and measured the house and asked a bunch of questions, took a bunch of notes. And it was at the moment I learned what appraisals were. And he's like, hey, I'm actually leaving to be a loan officer at Washington Mutual pretty soon. My spot's going to open. Do you want to go out there and learn the trade? I'm like, hell yeah. I mean, for that type of money, I'm a broke college kid. That was fantastic. Anyways, that's how I got started in mortgage. Completely accidental. Didn't know what it was before I knew what it was. And just had the right opportunity and the right person. And, here I am in mortgage.
Tim, when you were graduating, that was like early 2000s, right? That was like post.com bubble or like right around that time?
Right around it, yeah. So I officially left in 2001.
Okay.
So I think the peak of it was like 98, right, 99. So I'd say it was the bubble had burst. I don't remember exactly, but I want to say like buy.com, it was starting to fade away and those original brands.
Were you like enticed by what was happening there? I mean, you're not too far from Silicon Valley. So like, and was that ever like did you see all the gold rush there and think, hey, like I want to go start a company?
So I'll be honest, I missed it. Yeah, I totally missed it. What happened was in between high school and college, I went to like Borland Books, I think it was, or Barnes & Noble, forget which one it was. And you remember those big fat books? It was called like Learn ASP in 3 days. So like literally that big. So I bought that book. This was in between high school and college. And I don't know how the heck anyone ever finishes that book in 3 days. Is it possible?
You don't.
But at the end of it
Show
all,
other people that you're really smart.
If you don't sleep for 3 days straight.
but at the end of about a week, I learned how to code, and I started coding up stuff. The first thing I coded up was a web page or website called the X Pages. It was very similar to Maxim magazine, if you remember that magazine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beer babes and cars and all that stuff, right? So it was kind of like that. It was called xpages.com. It was quite fun building everything, getting it out. I mean, in the first month we got 30,000 unique visitors.
Oh wow.
And monetize it. So I let it go. And then I was like, all right, fine, let's just focus on school and just go the school route.
You said you couldn't monetize it, or it was hard?
It was hard to monetize back then, yeah. We had all this traffic going in, but it's like, all right, how do I make money? $8 a month, I can't quit the school.
Well,
for that.
yeah, because people didn't believe in digital advertising yet.
It probably wasn't like Google Ads or like display ads back then.
Yeah, no. I mean,
it didn't have those huge ad networks. We had those ad networks. I might not have, ever made it to mortgage.
That's crazy.
So we did that, and I shut it down eventually because, I was like, all right, better go do something real, go get my education, take the normal path, right? But little did I know later that Yahoo started picking up these small blog type, websites for $1 million to $5 million a pop, 50,000 users, 300,000 users, right? So they're picking picking these things up by the droves. I didn't know any better. If I knew better, I would have stuck with it, and I would have made my first exit much earlier.
Wow. And then what's the second company you started? Did you end up going working in like corporate after college, or?
So after college, oh gosh, this is going back. So I left school in 2001. Oh, so my buddy. So I went right into the appraisal side of the world, which got me introduced to the appraisal management side, the escrow, the notary, the title. Eventually, I started my own company after a couple of years working for that friend's firm.
Sure. And that's the in-house one?
That was in-house. That's correct. Yeah. So we started off.
That was an appraisal company or a software company?
So it originally started off as an appraisal management company. Like we literally had walls with files, right, for each day of the week for all the appointments. Very traditional service-based business. But my cousin at the time had graduated University of Austin, Texas. And he's like, man, I want to get out of Texas. I'm thinking California. I'm like, well, bro, come on by. I got a room for you. Only thing I ask, I'll pay you for it, but I need you to build me a website. I have this idea. So he built me an appraisal management software. Okay. And it was a way for us to be more organized, digital, right? It was one of the first cloud computing platforms I knew of in the mortgage space. Not the first, but one of the early ones. But here we made a big mistake. We never licensed it. So back in 2006, 2007, right, the market started tanking, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And our appraisal business tanked 85, 90% overnight.
Oh, yeah.
We went under.
It was rough.
Yeah.
I see. So if you had licensed it, you would have been able to get at least some sort of like subscriptions or, fee from all the other players.
It would have been game over, to be honest. My wife was telling me, hey, go license this to our competitors. I'm like, nah, we got to keep this as a competitive advantage. Biggest mistake, second biggest mistake in my life, right? It's not listening to my wife.
What was the biggest mistake?
The first mistake was not sticking with the X pages. The second big mistake was not listening to my wife, right? But had I listened to her, yeah, we would have went out there, licensed it. And there's, Global E-Track, right? Or E-Track, the company, either like the first successful appraisal management software company. He killed it. I think his name's Vlad over there. He absolutely killed it. And we could have been a good competitor to him, but didn't listen to my wife. So
interesting. And so you ended up selling that business, and that was at the end of the sale, that was like still a services business or a software business by the end of it?
So by the end of it, it was half and half. The revenues were split down the middle. So we had software, wasn't really called software as a service back then, right? All that hasn't been flushed out yet. And then
Yeah.
the other half was all service based.
Gotcha. And then, you know, you made your money there, I'm sure, but like, why? I guess what was the itch to start the second company, which I believe is Be Smarty, and like, what was kind of like the landscape, or what was kind of like the key insight that you saw there? Was like, we should go invest
So
or build this company.
when New Century went under,
Okay.
right, and volume just tanked, and people were defaulting on their loans and whatnot. You know, back in the days, originators didn't meet with their borrowers, right? Everything was done over the phone. The only person that the borrower usually met was the appraiser and the notary agent. You know, the purchase, maybe the agents and the inspectors, right? So our employees were the only ones to actually, have FaceTime with the borrowers. So when the borrowers got into trouble, what happened was they started calling us. Hey, you guys did my so 6 months ago, a year ago, whenever. I can't reach my loan officer. What's a negative amortization? I'm going to lose my house. They just didn't understand the products that they were put in, or they didn't understand the risks that they were facing. And it drove me to understand and learn more about how originations worked. And what I learned was just, amazing. It was just mind-boggling, the type of money you can make, but also the inefficiencies and also the non-transparency in the whole process. So at that moment, there was another company called, what was that original company? Mint.com. You remember those guys?
Yeah.
Mint.com. Was it like a Credit Karma type of thing?
Yeah, they were like kind of the original Credit Karma. So they're using Yodlee's technology to aggregate bank statements, right? Bank data. And they were blowing up. And what dawned on me was, wait, why are we asking people to fax in bank statements? There's data there clearly from the source. Well, what about credit? What about income? What about employment? What about assets, right? All these other things. So that's when I coined the idea of what I call source data. And I think that's pretty prominent throughout the industry now, where the data is from the source. If the data is from the source, well, in theory, you don't need to validate and audit as long as you trust the source. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Just use the data, make a decision. Right.
Okay.
So that was kind of the whole starting thing. And that led to me putting a business plan together, recruiting our first vendors, lenders, and management team. Went to go raise money. And the VCs were like, Tim, you're nuts. We're in a mortgage crisis. You want money for a pre-revenue mortgage idea? Can't do it.
Right.
And frankly, even if we did it, we probably would have been too early anyways. At least the way I had my business set up at the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, went back to the in-house company, eventually exited that. And then at that point, we said, all right, hey, let's finish this off. Let's do Be Smarty. So that's how Be Smarty came back to life.
Timeline wise, when you were pitching the VCs, what time period is that? Like early 2010s or like mid at this point, is it closer to like 2015?
No, this was 2008, 2009.
Oh, wow. So you had the idea for Be Smarty almost a decade prior to actually starting it.
I had it in 2007.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, because remember, 2008 was when the mortgage crisis became official, but New Century had died about a year before that, and then Encore and everything fell on the wholesale side a year before the official housing, global recession.
Gotcha. You're super early on things. That's pretty cool.
Not always a good thing. Sometimes, frustrating.
That's so fascinating.
It can be too early. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit. So you kind of talked about the problem you were solving with Be Smarty. What's different now about the problem you're solving with AskBob? Actually, I would love to hear this. Would you explain what do you feel like, what is the problem that AskBob AI solves for, and how is it different, the problem that you solved before versus what you're solving now?
Yeah, so Be Smarty, it's about process automation that delivers a new experience, a new outcome for both originators and borrowers. And so for borrowers, it's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper. For originators, it's the same thing. You can go from an application start to a paid appraisal in about 15, 20 minutes. The problem that we find is mortgage behavior. Despite having that technology for the last 10 years or so, not everybody wants it. Some people I just want an application. So we had to cut the product and make it smaller to sell more of it. But the clients that have full automation is not the majority; it's the minority in our client base. I'd love to see more of these clients kind of go towards the automation of the core origination process. Everyone's benefit. Now contrast that with what we do at AskBob. At AskBob, we are aggregating knowledge from an enterprise, whether it's in a database or in a document, in a folder, in a drive, aggregating the company's entire knowledge and turning that to an AI brain. Once we have the AI brain intact, then it's about, well, how do we get that out to users? And we decide to get out to users where they already live, right? So if you live in your email, you live in your Slack, you live on Teams or wherever, that's where you should be able to access what you need to access when you need it, rather than forcing them into a repository. I like to say that Bob knows everything, and that's what we do today. We try to learn everything that we're allowed to learn. We make that available with enterprise level permissions, security, auditing, logging, etc., to the users inside the company and also outside the company. Now, in the future, what we are looking at, well, Bob knows everything. Now, Bob can do everything. Right? Business can move at the speed of thought. Right? Where you're like, hey, the example I always use, like, hey, I want to update this policy, create a video Y, tell all the employees, if any employee, update the official handbook. If the employees don't do it, give them a friendly reminder. On the second offense, right? Let HR know, let the manager know, right? So all these things that you have to talk to 2, 3, 4 people and issue direction with and track, you can just create a prompt, right? And if you have enough integrations and reach, it can do those things. And that's why you could actually move the business at the speed of thought.
So the knowledge agent is the first act.
It is the first act, but it's also the most crucial act. Yeah.
Because you need that one source of truth of the whole organization. And now it's a question of tacking on other data sources, right? So like I text Tim over the weekend to think about granola. Because I love this idea of like you can take transcripts of Zoom calls and then have those ingested, right, as a data point within the organization. So now it's like follow-up questions don't need to go to the person, right? Like Tim and I were joking about, I want granola MCP hooked up just for Tim and I, because then I can, rather than annoying Tim, which I do a lot, Tim will just have his entire repository of knowledge in that central brain, right, for AskBob. And then I'm just able to query against that rather than having to, Slack Tim or call him or whatever from that perspective, which just gains a tremendous amount of efficiency.
What are you guys seeing on the front of like, so for AskBob to, I would imagine to be fully effective from a knowledge agent perspective, you need the lenders or your clients to essentially have that knowledge documented. And it seems to me that is like a challenge that we run into over and over again. Like even in our vertical with broker onboarding, very rarely do people have their broker onboarding process in a document. It clearly explains, hey, here's our thresholds, here's what we look for, blah, blah, blah. And oftentimes, we do the demo, we just do like a discovery call, understand all of this. And we're the ones actually helping them put together an initial process map. And that's the first time sometimes they're seeing like any sort of their process truly documented. We think it adds a lot of value just like upfront from a sales perspective, but also like even if they never do business with us, they can still walk away with that document and it still adds a ton of value for them. But I'm curious, like, how do you guys solve that challenge? And I don't know what have you guys been just going about that? I would
So
imagine you
it's a
hire a bunch
major
of
challenge.
interns or something like that to help your clients with that. But yeah, what's your take?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a major challenge. So, but before I answer it, though, it's something to really kind of consider here, right? Which is for the last thousands of years, data lives where? Right? Originally, it lived on, a sketching in the sand, carvings on the cave walls, right? Like that's really where it was. Then
Mm-hmm.
eventually, we invented, paper, and data started
Yeah.
living on paper, and for thousands of years, there it was on paper. And then I don't know if 60s ish, 70s, right? Computers really started growing, and paper started getting digital, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what
Mm-hmm.
used to live on a piece of paper now is on a website, or is on used to be on a pamphlet, now it's a PDF document, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it used to be a spreadsheet of cash transactions. Now it's on the spreadsheet. Point
Yeah.
is, we went from paper to digital paper. And now we're making another evolution here. Because if you take digital paper and you feed it into AI, it'll do an okay job.
Sure.
And we'll talk about how it does a better job in a second. So you have to create digital paper that's AI ready. So you have to think like AI. And if you look at this, if you look at SEO and AEOs, right, answer
Mm-hmm.
engines, that modification, that movement's already happening, dictated by Google. There's no going back. Right? Google basically said, "Look, I'm not going to figure it out. If you want to be included in Gemini results, you need to do it the way I want it." Right? Hence AEO
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
SEO still considered. Don't get me wrong, but it's not
Different.
core. It's not everything anymore.
Yeah.
Point is, even Google wants data differently now, so they can make AI work better. Right? So we, as producers of data and paper and so forth, we need to start really thinking about how we produce that paper, how we produce that digital, AI ready data. Because the better you produce it, the more value you're going to get from it. But it also changes the way you produce it and consume it, right, on the day-to-day human level. So again, big challenge that we face all the time, and especially like mortgage documents. I'm not talking about guidelines. Guidelines are pretty easy, but like matrices, we have tables that span 3 pages and gets cut off in the middle, and spans 3 columns, and there's footnotes, and there's conditions, and there's references back to a 400-page document, right? So it gets a little confusing. So what we have to do is we have a process we call echo transform.
Okay.
We take unstructured data and we structure it, and it's not unlike a chat GPT or whoever, right? When you upload something, yes, most of people, yes, they will rag it because it's the easiest, it's a pretty good method, right? But for more complex data sets, they actually have transformations inside it too, like we do. Theirs is probably just, a lot more scalable and better. But when you look at an AI vendor, right, if they're just ragging it, it's not going to take you very far. It's a core technique. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's evolving, right? Very, very rapidly. And so you have to transform the data from unstructured to structured, essentially. And that's not an easy problem to solve. But when you do that, the quality jumps up dramatically. And there's other techniques you can do to increase the quality, but that's one of the core ones, is the structured, the unstructured data.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you're seeing a leap of like we're talking like from 88% accurate to 98% accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, even like 82% accuracy up to the 95 plus. Yeah. It's a big, big jump.
That's huge.
Yeah, going from 50 to 60 is one thing, right? Going from 80s to 90s, what it does is it makes it useful, right? 85%, I can't use that. I don't know when it's hallucinating. I don't know when it's wrong. I just can't use it.
Yeah.
It's got to be that 97, 98, 99% for certain use cases.
2 years ago, when the first APIs kind of launched, we tried doing like an early version of RAG with the Fannie Mae guidelines as like a side project. And the biggest issue was it would just miss like key details, and those key details would, if you're in a live file and you're trying to underwrite it, or if you're a broker and trying to see if you can place that loan with a certain lender, if it misses certain key details, and like, you're going to submit a file and it's going to come back and forth, and it's just going to cause a lot of problems. And so At the time, it was not that great or not reliable whatsoever, and so it's the edge cases that is where you get caught.
Well, and I think this is why, the Anthropics and the open AIs of the world won't do away with companies like ours. Is you're always going to need domain expertise, right? You're still going to need to be able to fill in like in the niches and the understanding of, the content and the documents themselves, because you can do a lot of really cool stuff with Claude Code, but there still is a lot of limitations, right? That are coming back to that like business specific component, and at least to date, Anthropic has not figured out a way to deal with that.
Yeah. I like to say that those companies allow us to have a business because they really want to take us out. I think they can do that.
I thought somebody
care about a $500 million valuation, right? They want $5 trillion. It's just a different game.
Well, and that was part of, we were talking last week about Palantir, and one of the things that I had said was I think the cost to acquire comparative to the revenue. Companies like that, they look at this, once they understand the space, they're like, oh, forget it. Like they'll go work for like Freedom or UWM or Rocket, but like once you get outside of like, or cross country, once you get outside the top 5-10, they're not writing checks that are commensurate with those size of technology companies.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost is like too high. Tim, have you been playing around with any of the OpenClaw stuff?
Barely. I mean, OpenClaw is interesting because of the growth and all the hype it's getting. Mm-hmm. But there are other platforms, right, that have been around where you can build your own agents to do it. OpenClaw made it really ridiculously easy, though. But it's also I heard a story the other day. So I had a buddy, right? He owns a big trucking company. Mm-hmm. And so he was, we're on vacation together, and he was telling me about OpenClaw. He was all in on it. It's going to change my world. Like 3 weeks later, I'm like, hey, like, well, yeah, work in progress. Like, so it's not a magic bullet, right? There's a lot of risks to it. It still takes work, right, to do it. And if you look at the, there was a story that came out recently where I think a trader was using OpenClaw. Mm-hmm. And he lost $1 million, like the money just disappeared or something. So
I think the security side of it is a little scary. Yeah,
it's like playing around with chemicals right in the backyard. Like, you know what you're doing, man.
I had heard people about giving OpenClaw banking credentials, and I just thought like that's just mind blowing to me that anyone would think that was a good idea, but
that's sketchy.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm not saying it be that way. So Tim, where this is a good question. Where do you see? So obviously, right now, as a company, you're continuing to add a lot more data sources. You've moved into documents outside of just general knowledge repository, but let's like fast forward like 6 months, and what do you think that world looks like, and what do you feel like you'll be working on at that point?
Yeah, so you're definitely going to see more data sets because data is critical in AI, right? Data consumers are going to be less valuable than data makers, right? Creators. You're going to see more delivery channels because the core idea of knowledge and using that knowledge to make decisions and speak and process and communicate, it's so core to us as humans, right? That's not going anywhere, right? So we got to continue to make sure it continues to move forward. But I definitely see more agentic agents that are purpose-built rather than generic, especially with where we cater in heavily regulated industries. Definitely, we'll see more MCP capabilities. It's just too cool to not use.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see a lot more predefined workflows, like very, kind of similar to agentic agents, except it's very purpose built.
Which I have to tip my hat to Tim, because Tim was like in front of everyone, or not everyone, but an awful lot of people on the MCP server. You really pulled the trigger early on us building an MCP server.
Yeah. We, once I understood it, I didn't understand it quite immediately, but once I understood, I'm like, stupid, we're not doing this. Like, this is this is the holy grail as of right now. There'll be another one, but as of right now, this is it. So.
For you guys, predefined workflows, are you guys kind of just like looking at what your existing clients are doing and then kind of like working with them and seeing what's scalable across like your client base and building it like that, or like how are you guys?
We reserve about a third of the roadmap any given time for client demand. And it's just a realization. Like, look, we know what we know. The users know a lot more, right? They know what they're willing to pay for. They know what their pain is. So if we got to listen to them, and listening to them and getting on a monthly call is one thing, but you operationally, right? You have to leave the capacity there. Otherwise, I talk to them about it and it never gets done, right? And that creates a different perception and brand promise that we don't want.
Is that something you do across all your companies? The third of the roadmap?
No. At Be Smarty, it's actually a little bit bigger.
Okay.
We have really big customers over there that are, out of the box doesn't always meet their needs.
Gotcha.
So we have to give a little bit more on that. But that's on the mortgage side. Be Smart is also commercial, also serves commercial and industrial lending. On that side, it's much more. It's also much more. What do you call? Out of the box than it is in mortgage. Mortgage is a little bespoke, as we all know. So,
when you say industrial lending, what does that mean?
C&I lending is just commercial industrial, like business loans, lines of credit, equipment lease financing, money to business entities, commercial entities, not commercial real estate, but commercial businesses. CRE lending is something that we don't play with yet.
And it is a space that nobody pays attention to, by the way.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it until now.
It's not as big as mortgage, but every business, like you own a shoe store, you need $300,000 a line of credit for inventory. We're gonna get the money, right? You go to your local commercial bank.
Gotcha. Fascinating.
But there are these little niches of the world that are actually like great places to be working on technology products. Because, again, big guys aren't going to go into them because they look at the TAM and they're like, not worth it. But that's not to say that you can't make several $1 million in ARR. You know what I mean?
Right.
This just depends on where you're at.
You want to ask something?
Oh no, I thought you were about to ask something.
Yeah, I was gonna just say like from a I guess like from a marketing perspective right now, Tim, you're probably seeing like a lot of people, especially in the AI space, even let's say ICE or at the ICE event or just like any conferences right now, everybody's like hyped about AI. You've obviously got all these relationships with existing clients across the Be Smarty platform in our vertical.
Lost me.
How am I there?
Yeah,
I lost you for like 5 seconds.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, how are you kind of like what are the conversations you're hearing about AI from your industry friends and how they're thinking about it, like outside of the Ask Bob kind of like
sphere? It really runs the gamut, man. I have a trucking company buddy like I was talking about earlier. He is super on AI. He has his own software development firm for a trucking company, right? You would think this is just a nuts and bolts, CapEx type of company, but he's got a software engineering team. He's building. He has his own system of record. He's integrating AI. He's all over it, man. Now on the flip side, I have other peers and friends that have much more advanced companies, as you could call it, right? Technically advanced. They have no idea what to do with AI. Right?
Interesting.
I would say I think us being in technology, we kind of forget the innovation adoption curve, right? We're very early people, all three of us on the call, right? Our audience, our first customers, those are the
Right.
early adopters, right? But the majority of the wealth and revenue won't be built till later, right? And at least on the enterprise side, and we're not there yet on the early growth curve portion, which covers about 34% of the market. The laggards, the second hump on that covers the other 34. Right, so we're still really early, and I think we all forget, like, hey, we're just in it every day, right? So, but when you talk to the average business owner and executive, a lot of them are just they don't know. They're like, I know I got to do something, but what? Where do I start? What does this take? What do I get in return? Right? What's a commitment like? And my answer to them is like, look, it's like the internet. You don't need to understand it. Just start using it.
Yeah, somewhere.
Just get your feet wet. Yeah. Because you're going to be really behind if you don't.
You're right. I mean, it's like my favorite meme that's, remember there are 7 billion people who don't use AI, right? And like we often, like I was talking to like an executive on Wall Street last week, and I was, kind of geeking out on it. And he was like, honestly, you might as well be speaking Latin. Like just the average person just doesn't use it or doesn't have a grasp on it. But we do live in a bubble where we think all of us, right, are using it at this, insane level.
Sorry, I just wanted to add. I also think these people who say and admit they don't know and they need help, not only they're the majority, but they're also a lot wiser than they were before, if you think about it, right? Because they lived through the internet age, right? So now they're like, well, I know I need help, right? They now they know what they don't know, and they're willing to reach out and like, hey, like come in, let's take a look at my processes. What can it do for me? And I think that's the biggest difference here. It wasn't like, well, maybe it'll go away in 5 years. People were like, okay, let's do something. I just don't know who it is with. I don't know what it's going to be, but I want to find out.
Yeah, and we're even seeing companies. This I thought was an interesting thing on the front of AI is we're seeing a lot more companies where you start to have the conversation with them about like what your capabilities are, and then it just sort of naturally, okay, can you do this, and this as well? And it seems like people are trying, and I think this is actually smart, is I think people are trying to kind of align with an AI company to grow with, right? Versus having 17 AI companies running around their shop. And so we've seen more and more of that sort of where it's like, okay, we're going to have this. And as a matter of fact, I had somebody who I reached out to, I was trying to meet with, and they were like, oh no, we're working with Friday Harbor. And I was like, we don't do what they do, like at all. But we're both AI companies. And so I think this is becoming a thing of people are really like, okay, we're going to crawl, walk, run, but we're definitely ready to do something. Like after 2025 being the year of early adopter, this year seems to be the year that everybody is like, okay, I'm ready. It's time to get started. Where do I start? And starting to like have a lot more conversations.
I think there's like a couple trends here I've noticed. I think one, people are like, Tim, I'm sure you at Be Smarty, you were trying to sell, integrations and things like that. And it was probably like trying to fight tooth and nail to get like, Be Smarty integrated with an LOS or whatever whatever the situation was. But now they're like table stakes. At least what I'm seeing is like, oh, like these tools have to talk to each other. And whereas before it seemed like that was like an optional thing. So I think I'm noticing that, and then the other piece is like I think people are starting to become more tech literate, or at least asking questions around technology that are a little bit more stronger and more invested than like previously, where they would just leave it to like the Encompass administrator or like the CT or the CIO to kind of figure it out. Where now like ops and sales leaders are also getting involved in those conversations and trying to understand where technology is being used. And the third point I think is there's a little bit of fear in the market of like, hey, we got it. Like Andrew was saying, like, people are becoming more aware of it, but like there's a fear aspect of like I got to do something because somebody else, the other person, is also doing something, and so there's a little bit of fear driving the need behind all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think these executives and leaders, they're just wiser, right? Back, 25 years ago, internet was coming out, and it's like, oh, no, I'll wait and see what happens, right? But I think they just all learned that lesson. Like, well,
Yeah.
shoot, I don't think I can wait. I don't need to rush. I do need to get started.
So, I'd love for you to talk about,
Exactly.
as a guy who's built, multiple enterprise SOC 2 compliant SaaS, your thoughts on Claude Code, because you now have an annoying co-founder who's like constantly playing with it, and so now he thinks that anything's possible in 45 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But what is your take on Claude Code? And what is your response to people who are like, oh, I could just build that in Claude Code?
Yeah. So I think Claude Code is absolutely amazing. I mean, all the coding platforms are absolutely amazing, but Claude Code definitely takes the cake. I see a future where everything that we interact with can be reshaped the way you think about it, right? So imagine your TV. Like, I wish the previews wouldn't come on Netflix anymore. I don't want to see those, right? Just, it's done, right? Or I want my whatever to do whatever, right? It's done. You just talk to it. So eventually it will be good enough where human prompting will create the software, which means software will become a commodity and the people building software will become a commodity. Now, when that day comes, what I see is non-mission critical SaaS will probably die. Even mission critical SaaS will take a little bit of a hitting, but then it'll survive and it'll even out and keep on growing, right? It'll just grow in a different way. And ultimately, right, and think about it this way, if you have a bad architect, you have a bad product person, but you have the best, amazing, engineering team ever, what do you have at the end of it? You have bad product, right? So all Claude Code has done is just change that engineering team, that world-class engineering team that you have, maybe don't have, and now it's been doing replaced with Claude Code. So the same rule applies. Bad architect, bad product, Claude Code equals bad product. So really the tip of the spear is architect and product, right? So then you got to ask yourself, well, what's a good product person? Well, they understand usability, they understand technical restrictions and possibilities. They usually have domain expertise, hands-on, but they can all. But more importantly, they can communicate and articulate it with the engineers at the company. In this case, it's the architect. So that architect, well, what makes a good architect? Well, they need to understand how things are going to scale. They need to understand enterprise security. They need to understand all those things that we as normal users don't take for granted, right? Oh, I can log in. Well, behind the login, it's pretty darn complicated, from how passwords are saved and hashed and the requirements for it to resetting passwords and brute force detection. Like that little screen of a simple login page, it's extremely complicated behind it all. I mean, there's companies that provide software just for logins, right? That's how complicated it is. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is I think Claude Code is amazing. I think it will be in the future. Think and it's done. We're just not there yet. In the meantime, you have to be a really good product person, really good architect, in order to get the outcomes you want from AI coding.
Do you in certain ways see Ask Bob growing as that security and governance and data layer over something like a Cloud Code?
Yes, but it wouldn't be over Cloud Code. It would be supporting Cloud Code, right? So I had a friend of mine. He built this. He's a CFO type. He built this little tool, or it took him 6 hours to say using Cloud. You upload financial statements, and it gives you a summary of it, and then it gives you a little widget and tool so you can do a forecast. You can add trend lines and all this stuff. It was pretty cool. Like he really seemed to love it, and it looked really cool. So I just asked him a simple question. It's like, well, where does these documents get saved? Like, I don't know. Well, it's kind of right. The point is, could he figure it out eventually? Yeah. But a good architect, a good product person, it would have already been defined. The location, the file name, how it's saved, where it's saved, the permissions around it. What about password protected PDFs? Right. So there's so much built around just the simple upload a document. So yes, absolutely. I think an enterprise vendor like Bob will just be like, well, this is best practice. This is how enterprise is done. You want to put something else on top of it for a cool user experience? Have at it. But the core, the enterprise features are controlled by someone that should be controlling it, and not your marketing person, not your line level employee that has now access to company level data. So.
Also, I think the other issues with like the security side of things, I think you touched on a little bit, but like at least in this industry, there's a lot of PII that's being shared across like a loan application. So if you're vibe coding something, which I saw on LinkedIn, somebody tagged me on something that was being vibe coded. I thought it was a cool, like initial demo or an idea to kind of like, put in front of somebody and be like, is this the right idea? And like, yeah, it's definitely cool from that perspective. But, if you're going to be sharing, borrower docs and stuff like that through a platform like that, and like you just vibe coded it over the weekend, like, there's a lot of risk from a cybersecurity perspective that's going to be happening. And so, bullish on the cybersecurity space, and like I think that's going to be a part of the industry that's going to need to be bolstered up.
I mean, as a mortgage company, right, mortgage lending operation, there's not many things that could take out of business. Right? One of them is losing data, so don't do that. One of them is breaking the rules, right? Compliance, don't do that.
Yeah.
But other than that, like it's pretty hard to mess up. Yeah, of course you got cycles and loan officer recruiting competition, all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's core, right? Don't break the rules, and don't lose people's data, because those are things where it's gonna pretty much put you out of business. So you can't be cavalier with this stuff, in my opinion. So
but
do it, use it.
That people are currently using. I mean, I don't even want to know how much PII, Claude, and or Anthropic and OpenAI are sitting on now. You know what I mean?
It's really amazing how much we open up to these models.
Well, but I think it takes it a step further as to why there is such a need for companies to adopt enterprise AI solutions, right? Because people are expecting the tool, right? I mean, it's something LinkedIn or somebody had a poll where it said like 54% of all new applicants are asking what AI tools they'll have access to when they interview for a job. And I think this just speaks to, like, if you don't provide them something, they're going to cut a corner and use something like a Claude or a GPT.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, it goes to show you that, like, people, we may say we care about privacy, but like sometimes our actions do not reflect that.
Well, I mean, because we're not usually harmed by it, but when we're harmed by it,
then we care.
Yeah. It's one of those things, right? But going back to that, I'd say this: it's that same executive who probably lives in a very big house, who's had a great career, he's got a nice car, probably multiple cars in a vacation home, right? So that type of executive who's saying, "Yeah, we can cloud code everything." It's like saying, "Well, do you want to protect all your assets with Geico insurance that's got $500,000 coverage on it?" No, right? You're going to go with the best insurance possible with the right coverage. It's the same thing here. Why would we put our company enterprise at risk? There are enterprise providers out there. There are ways to do it. You just gotta go do it that way. Just don't cut corners. You just have too much to lose, right? The whole entire enterprise, what easy to hard to build, easy to fall, right? So
Yeah, Andrew, when Tim was talking about the car example, I was about to say Range Rover and two kids in private school.
Tim's got a Land Rover and two kids in private school. So, Tim, last week I was making this joke. We were talking, I was making a comparison about how two borrowers making the same salary are not equal, right? And I literally, I just randomly was like, I was like you and Greg. I was like, Greg, you and I. And I'm like, let's say you have a Range Rover and two kids in private school, and I drive a Mazda, and my kids go to public school. And it turns out he's got a Range Rover and two kids in private school. I just randomly guessed that. So it all worked out that way. So where do you see all this headed? This is a question I've never asked you. So I was talking with an LO late last week, and one of the things that sort of dawned on me is in a lot of these like relationship type roles, right? Whether it's loan officers, relationship bankers, AEs, whatever, that we're very quickly moving towards a world where they don't need anything but a smartphone to control 95, 98% of their workload, especially once we've got like create, delete, and update, added in. Mm-hmm. To where now, like, do you see a world where like basically text messaging becomes the predominant interface, if you will?
Yes,
that's how CEOs operate, right?
Yeah. So it's funny you make that comment. My short answer, very quick answer is yes. We can move to a world where the world can move off of verbal, written, short commands. It doesn't mean it's going to stay there, right? Because if you think about it, right, that was Microsoft DOS. Remember the black screens with the green font? It was just short commands, syntax, right? Now the syntax is just much more powerful, much more easy. But we went from that to a GUI. And now we're kind of going back to this text-based interface, right? I think there's a time and place for it. But I think in general, yes, you could do a whole hell of a lot with verbal commands and written commands. But the reason why I thought it was interesting, PK, is it's contingent, to be a CEO, it's contingent on having great people that can execute the work. They make it good, right? At the end of the day, is how I like to describe it. So that's where agentic comes in, right? So it kind of becomes that team behind, the surface that can actually do these things. But, I hooked up, so we use Framer for our website. I hooked it up with MCP, just wasn't happening because it's a visual outcome. Mm-hmm. I want a visual editor. I tried using the text command and was, trying to describe this in this little corner and, good luck, right? It was just so much harder to use Framer. You could use it, but it was just so much harder. It was so much easier to use a graphical interface for it. So I think, subject, I think context matters. So.
Yeah. I was going to say like the visual example you gave there, you have to know I think you still need to know, you still have that knowledge of like, let's say you were a designer and you knew exactly what you were just trying to describe or what you were looking for. You could type that out and you would get the output you wanted. But if you don't know that and you are trying to get a certain outcome, it's much easier for you to visually see that and then be like, okay, that looks right to me, versus like being able to like type it out. So it doesn't replace like the knowledge aspect of it or the understanding of like what you want. It goes back to like we talked a little bit about it earlier. It's like just the prompting aspect of it. Like if you can't prompt good, like you're not going to get good results, period. no matter what the domain is. And so I think that's a overlooked aspect of this whole, industry.
Well, you brought up an excellent point in our text group, PK, where I know maybe you were being funny, but PK. So obviously I've started working with Claude Code like a lot more. Like I had to I'm now on the max plan or whatever. I couldn't believe I actually upgraded to the $100 a month plan, but but I kept running out of credits. And I hate how they'll stop a project like midstream. Like when you run out of tokens, you're like, come on, man. Like seriously, like can't we finish? Oh crap, I lost my train of thought on that.
You said I made a joke. I'm trying to actually find what meme or joke.
But you said we were talking about, I was like, I want to get towards being able to run Claude and Terminal so that I can have multiple things running at the same time, right? Because right now I use desktop. And PK was like, that's the new leadership. And I thought it was such an interesting thing though, but I think you made a point, which is, so we have this joke, and it's not a joke, that our newest KPI is how many tokens, who uses the most tokens, right? Like that becomes the new KPI, really, in a lot of organizations. Like how much are you leveraging something like Claude Code? I'm talking about engineers, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right, is that to a certain degree, a new skill is how good are you at commanding AI agents to do as much work as possible, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's for context that we were talking about, or you were explaining how you ask Cloud Code to do something and it tells you can't do it, and then you have to tell it again. And I was like, yeah, you have to instill belief in your agents. That's
Claude Code this morning told me to do 4 things, and I replied back and I go, how many of them can you do? And it was like, I can do 3 of them. And so it went off and 3. Like it's so funny, like how sometimes it'll just be like, oh, I can't do this, and you're like, are you sure you can't do it? And then it's like, you're right, I can. And then it goes off and it does it, It's
a junior employee.
It is the junior employee. But that is the thing, right? Which is, again, you have to get accustomed to how do you talk to it? How do you leverage it? Like, what are all the different ways? But yeah, so that is, I mean, again, I think that is like the new KPI. Tim, we got 2 minutes left. Any parting thoughts? Do you want to?
First of all, it's awesome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. It was good chatting. You can see why it keeps on running. What, episode 42 now?
Yeah.
I would just say, like, if the audience are business executives, I would just say this, guys. AI's here, is not going anywhere. There will be trillionaires and billionaires made out of this, right? But more importantly, I think there will be losers and winners from this. I think we're moving towards an economy where you need way less knowledge work. I think physical work will rise. I personally am worried for my kids, seeing what AI can do. It's like, I think Peter Drucker, right, who coined knowledge work, he'd be rolling his grave right now. I wonder what he would be saying. But all that stuff is going away. So while you're trying to automate and cut 50% of cost of goods or whatever, someone else is trying to automate 80% of it. And even if you got to 80% of it, it's going to be table stakes. Right? So it might be good for the next 3 years, but then when every competitor is running at the same ratio, well, how are you going to compete? Right? So it's a serious consideration. And the best advice is just get started. Even if it just use ChatGPT or Claude Code for something dumb and fun. Like I coach Little League. I use it to help me plan out my lineups, analyze my players, and coach them and find drills that help their weaknesses, right? So just do something fun with it. Just use it, consume it, and something will come up, come to your brain, and you'll implement it. But that's my best advice: is just get started, even if it's something small and fun. But you got to get started. We're talking about good versus great. We're talking about like exist or don't exist in the future.
Yeah, I would say like I think once you have that interaction, then you have like this aha moment, and then you're like, oh, what else can I do?
Yeah,
That's where you want to get, I would say.
Yeah, so I encourage everyone just to go learn, man. Your careers might be coming to an end, right? 5-10 years left, but your kids aren't, right? So, you get going, build a good company, have it last long, live on beyond you, and help the next generation just make something of it. So
that's why I'm buying both of my kids Mac Minis and loading them with Claude Code and sending them on their way. All right, Tim, last thing. We always have our guest gets to ask the next guest a question. Unfortunately, we didn't have a question for you. Long story. But next week's guest is Brooke Lapidez from Meridian Link.
Okay, Brooke is in charge of the partner network, right?
I believe so, yes.
Does it have to be, can it be fun or professional?
It can be whatever you want.
I don't know. It was kind of hard to ask a question, but maybe why do you stay in mortgage?
That's a good question.
All right, there you go. Are you saying Brooke is better for better I don't know, whatever you call it, fields, pastures?
No. I mean, I truly mean that, because when you get into mortgage, you just don't leave, right? So it's kind of just a.
It is true. Originally asked Bob. We were like, we're not going to do mortgage.
We are with like big mortgage companies clients, right? So.
And here we are. You know what I mean?
So you get pulled right back in.
You just get
mortgage is hard to get out of. It's so rewarding. It's given me so much in my life, friendships, relationships, and opportunity. But why do you remain in mortgage? I guess.
There you go. I love it. All right, Tim, thanks so much, bro. I appreciate it.